of the old village communities deserves a special mention. It is the gradual extension of a circle of men, embraced by the feelings of solidarity, not only the tribes federated into stems, but the stems as well, even though of different origin, joined together in confederations. Some unions were so close that, for instance, the Vandals of the part of their confederation had left for the Rhine, and thence went over to Spain and Africa, respected for 40 consecutive years the landmarks and the abandoned villages of their confederates, and did not take possession of them until they had ascertained through envoys that their confederates did not intend to return. With other barbarians, the soil was cultivated by one part of the stem, while the other part fought on or beyond the frontiers of the common territory. As to the leagues between several stems, they were quite habitual. The Sicambers united with the Cherusks and the Sueves, the Quads with the Sarmats with the Alans, the Copts and the Huns. Later on we also see the conception of nations gradually developing in Europe, long before anything like a state had grown in any part of the continent occupied by the barbarians. These nations, for it is impossible to refuse the name of a nation to the Merovingian France or to the Russia of the 11th and 12th century, were nevertheless kept together by nothing else but a community of language and a tacit agreement of the small republics to take their dukes from none but one special family. Wars were certainly unavoidable. Migration means wars, but Sir Henry Maine has already fully proved in his remarkable study of the tribal origin of international law that man has never been so ferocious or so stupid as to submit to such an evil as war without some kind of effort to prevent it, and he has shown how exceedingly great is the number of ancient institutions which bear the marks of a design to stand in the way of war or to provide an alternative to it. Henry Maine, International Law, London, 1888, pages 11 to 13. E. Nice, Les origines du droit international, Bruxelles, 1894. In reality, man is so far from the warlike being he is supposed to be, that when the barbarians had once settled, they so rapidly lost the very habits of warfare that very soon they were compelled to keep special dukes followed by special scholars or bands of warriors in order to protect them from possible intruders. They preferred peaceful toil to war, the very peacefulness of man being the cause of the specialization of the warrior's trade, which specialization resulted later on in serfdom and in all the wars of the state's period of human history. History finds great difficulties in restoring to life the institutions of the barbarians. At every step the historian meets with some faint indication which he is unable to explain with the aid of his own documents only. But a broad light is thrown on the past as soon as we refer to the institutions of the very numerous tribes which are still living under a social organization almost identical with that of our barbarian ancestors. Here we simply have the difficulty of choice, because the islands of the Pacific, the steppes of Asia, and the tablelands of Africa are real historical museums, containing specimens of all possible intermediate stages which mankind has lived through when passing from the savage gens up to the state's organization. Let us then examine a few of those specimens. If we take the village communities of the Mongol Buryats, especially those of the Kudings steppe on the upper Lena, which have better escaped Russian influence, we have fair representatives of barbarians in a transitional state between cattle breeding and agriculture. A Russian historian, the Kazan Professor Chapov, who was exiled in 1862 to Siberia, has given a good description of their institutions in the Izvestia of the East Siberian Geographical Society, Volume 5, 1874. These Buryats are still living in joint families, that is, although each son, when he is married, goes to live in a separate hut, the huts of at least 3 generations remain within the same enclosure, and the joint family work in common in their fields, and own in common their joint households and their cattle as well as their calves. Grounds (small fenced patches of soil kept under soft grass for the rearing of calves). As a rule, the meals are taken separately in each hut, but when meat is roasted, all the 20 to 60 members of a joint household feast together. Several joint households, which live in a cluster, as well as several smaller families settled in the same village, mostly debris of joint households accidentally broken up, make the ulus or the village community. Several uluses make a tribe, and the 46 tribes or clans of the Kudings steppe are united into one confederation. Smaller and closer confederations are entered into as necessity arises for special wants by several tribes. They know no private property in land, the land being held in common by the Ulus or rather by the confederation, and if it becomes necessary, the territory is reallotted between the different Ulusers at a folkmote of the tribe and between the 46 tribes at a folkmote of the confederation. It is worthy of note that the same organization prevails among all the 250,000 Buryats of East Siberia, although they have been for 3 centuries under Russian rule and are well acquainted with Russian institutions. With all that, inequalities of fortune rapidly develop among the Buryats, especially since the Russian government is giving an exaggerated importance to their elected Taishas (princes), whom it considers as responsible tax collectors and representatives of the confederations in their administrative and even commercial relations with the Russians. The channels for the enrichment of the few are thus many, while the impoverishment of the great number goes hand in hand, through the appropriation of the Buryat lands by the Russians. But it is a habit with the Buryats, especially those of Kudings, and habit is more than law, that if a family has lost its cattle, the richer families give it some cows and horses that it may recover. As to the destitute man who has no family, he takes his meals in the huts of his congeniers. He enters a hut, takes by right, not for charity, his seat by the fire, and shares the meal, which always is scrupulously divided into equal parts. He sleeps where he has taken his evening meal. Altogether, the Russian conquerors of Siberia were so much struck by the communistic practices of the Buryats that they gave them the name of Bratskis, the brotherly ones, and reported to Moscow, with them everything is in common, whatever they have is shared in common. Even now, when the Leda Buryats sell their wheat or send some of their cattle to be sold to a Russian butcher, the families of the Ulus or the tribe put their wheat and cattle together and sell it as a whole. Each Ulus has moreover its grain store for loans in case of need, its communal baking oven (the four-banal of the old French communities), and its blacksmith who, like the blacksmith of the Indian communities (Sir Henry Maine's Village Communities, New York, 1876, pages 193 to 196), being a member of the community, is never paid for his work within the community. He must make it for nothing, and if he utilizes his spare time for fabricating the small plates of chiseled and silvered iron which are used in Buryat land for the decoration of dress, he may occasionally sell them to a woman from another clan, but to the women of his own clan the attire is presented as a gift. Selling and buying cannot take place within the community, and the rule is so severe that when a richer family hires a laborer, the laborer must be taken from another clan or from among the Russians. This habit is evidently not specific to the Buryats. It is so widely spread among the modern Barbarians, Aryan and Ural-Altayan, that it must have been universal among our ancestors. The feeling of union within the confederation is kept alive by the common interests of the tribes, their folkmotes, and the festivities which are usually kept in connection with the folkmotes. The same feeling is however maintained by another institution, the Abba or common hut, which is a reminiscence of a very remote past. Every autumn the 46 clans of Kudings come together for such a hunt, the produce of which is divided among all the families. Moreover, national abbas, to assert the unity of the whole Buryat nation, are convoked from time to time. In such cases, all Buryat clans, which are scattered for hundreds of miles west and east of Lake Baikal, are bound to send their delegate hunters. Thousands of men come together, each one bringing provisions for a whole month. Everyone's share must be equal to all the others, and therefore before being put together they are weighed by an elected elder (always with the hand; scarce would be a profanation of the old custom). After that, the hunters divide into bands of 20, and the parties go hunting according to a well-settled plan. In such abbas the entire Buryat nation revives its epic traditions of a time when it was united in a powerful league. Let me add that such communal hunts are quite usual with the Red Indians and the Chinese on the banks of the Ussuri (the Kada). Nazarov, the North Ussuri territory (Russian), St. Petersburg, 1887, page 65. Close footnote. We the Kabyles, whose manners of life have been so well described by two French explorers, open footnote, Hanotaux et Le Tourneau, La Kabylie, 3 volumes, Paris, 1883, close footnote. We have barbarians still more advanced in agriculture. Their fields, irrigated and manured, are well attended to, and in the hilly tracts every available plot of land is cultivated by the spade. The Kabyles have known many vicissitudes in their history. They have followed for some time the Musulman law of inheritance, but being adverse to it, they have returned 100